That's $40,000 to $100,000 gone from a $1 million estate. Hi, this is Jeff Marsacci, the Plain English Attorney, and welcome to the video. Before we dig into today's topic, please help us get out solid, accurate information on estate planning and Medicaid planning by liking the video and subscribing to the channel. Unfortunately, the algorithms just tend to favor videos that tell people what they want to hear instead of what is actually true. If you want us to get the truth out there about estate and Medicaid planning information, then please like the video and subscribe to the channel. Today, we are going to talk about, do I need a trust? So let's cut through the noise and get right to that real question. Do you need a trust? If you're like most people, you've probably been told a will is good enough, maybe even by an attorney, maybe even your attorney. You've got modest assets, your family gets along mostly, and you're not exactly a Rockefeller. So why bother with a trust? The real question you should be asking is, do I want my family going through the probate court when I die? Because that's exactly what happens when you rely on a last will and testament for your estate plan. Probate isn't a gentle, efficient process. It's expensive, slow, public, and it can make your loved ones jump through flaming hoops to get to what you wanted to have in the first place. So probate is the problem. Here's what really happens with a will. You end up with a lot of legal fees. Now, most probate estates lose between 4 to 10% of their value to this court process and mainly attorney's fees. So that's $40,000 to $100,000 gone from a $1 million estate statistically. And no, the court doesn't get most of that. The lawyers do. So when you hear, oh, probate fees in our state aren't that bad, they're talking about what a court charges. They're not talking about what the attorney charges. Another big downside, delays. 6 to 18 months is the typical wait before the assets are fully distributed and the estate is closed, and that's if no one fights over it. Third downside, privacy. It's out the door. Wills are public documents. So is your probate inventory. That means your most nosy neighbor or even a random scammer can see what your heirs are getting. And those names, addresses, and ages are on those forms. There's litigation risk, and that's the fourth big downside. Probate opens the door to contests. One disgruntled relative can throw a wrench in the works just by filing a claim, even if it's completely baseless. And a lot more times than we would like to admit, people get paid to go away. It's not right. It's not fair. But it's what happens. Now we have a revocable living trust. A properly drafted and funded revocable living trust avoids all that because there's no probate cost when you're settling your trust. If your trust owns the assets, when you pass on, your successor trustee handles everything privately, so there's no court oversight. Trustee may get paid a little bit, but it's nothing compared to the usual probate and attorney's fees. No court inventory is needed for those assets. Your family keeps the business their business. There's no long delays, so as long as your debts are taken care of and the taxes are paid, your trustee can settle the vast majority of the estate in weeks, not years. And much lower fees because your trust may cost several $1,000s upfront, but the settlement costs are, what's that, 4 to 10%. So compare somewhere between 5 to 7,000 for a full-on, all the documents you need, complete estate plan with an attorney who knows what they're doing, and compare that to the $70,000 to $100,000 in legal fees down the road. Look, that's just going to help you make your decision. And I hear this all the time. But my estate is small. So some attorneys say if your estate is less than $14 million, you don't need a trust. That's like saying you don't need to change the oil in your car because your gas tank is full. If you think it's important for educational videos like this to get out there, then please help us out by subscribing to the channel. A revocable trust isn't just about saving on taxes, which most states and most people aren't in a position where they have more than that $14 million federal estate tax threshold. It's about settling the estate efficiently and having things done exactly the way you want it. That number has nothing to do with taxes. The myth of simplicity. Oh, I still think a will is simpler. Well, then you haven't seen the mountains of forms, receipts, and court inventories that are required. One uncooperative funeral home once held up a client's estate for 4 months because they wouldn't print a bill with a zero balance on it. The fact is, every penny has to be accounted for, and in my state, you have to have a paid in full funeral bill. If you don't have that, then it won't settle. And that funeral home just kept sending that receipt, but it didn't have a zero balance on the end. It had the full value, and they stamped paid in full. Unacceptable. 3 times we had to actually threaten to sue them just for this piece of paperwork. Meanwhile, if you had a revocable living trust and you just paid that bill, then you don't have to worry about that piece of paperwork. You just could have had your estate move on. No 4-month additional delay. So, do you need a trust? Well, if you want your loved ones to avoid needless attorney's fees, long court delays, public scrutiny, and the stress of managing paperwork for a year or more being put on the person in charge, then yeah, you really should look at a trust. It's not about how much money you have. It's not about, oh, well, I want everything to go simply to these beneficiaries. It's about keeping it out of court. So if you're ready to make things easier on your family, start with a conversation. In my office, if you're a North Carolina resident, we'll talk through your specific situation, help you make the right choice. So you can schedule a free 30-minute discovery call with our office. Again, if you're in North Carolina, at 919-844-7993. If you just want the same general pre-appointment information that walks through, here's the difference between a will and a trust, and here's what probate is, then check out the free course we have online at freetrustcourse.com. And this can get you started no matter what estate attorney you're going to work with. Don't let the court system write that last chapter of your life. Write it yourself with the plan that actually works.